Chairman, I'll live on
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the business meeting of Northamptonshire County Council. Just to confirm that we are COVID friendly here and we've socially distanced and adhering to all the normal COVID rules. For the benefit of members, the chat function is disabled on Zoom, so you won't be able to use that. And can I remind you, there will be voting by electronic poll on screen, which Mr. Hanson will introduce on each occasion. If you wish to speak, please raise your electronic blue hand on Zoom rather than wave at the screen. If there's anyone who has an issue with raising it, please advise us so that we can pick that up. Also, members should have a contact number should they lose their connection. And there's no fire drill due to take place during the meeting, but if the fire bell sounds continuously in Angel Square, we will leave the building by the nearest exit and disperse for 20 minutes and advise what's going to happen. Obviously, for those of you at home, you must make your own arrangements. So we'll start with the meeting with apologies from councillors for inability to attend. Councillor Patel.
Mr. Chairman, I got one apology from Councillor Stephen Osborne.
Thank you. Councillor McGee.
No apologies received, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stamborough.
All present, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Hakewell for the Independents.
Councillor Julie Davenport offers her apology.
Thank you very much. On to item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, 19th of March, a long time ago now. First of all, can I inform members that in item 29-19, the motion submitted by Councillor Pinder-Chohan, she had in fact altered the text and it did not clearly state that the council had accepted the alteration. The copy of the minutes that I will sign today has clearly noted that in the text as well as the resolution. Does anyone wish to make any comment on the minutes? Can I ask that council agree that I sign the public minutes of the meeting on March the 19th?
Agreed.
And there will be, as usual, a poll for this.
Thank you. Councillor, just about to launch the poll. Give members 20 seconds to cast their vote. So that's 44, no abstentions and no against.
Thank you. So that's passed and I will sign the minutes. Can I ask council if it's your wish that we sign the private minutes? There was a page of private minutes for the meeting held on the same day. Does anyone wish to make a comment? If they do, we'll have to go into private session and I'll defer it to later because that causes sorts of technical issues. And so we'll launch the poll for the private minutes as well now. Councillors should remember to press the submit button as well.
Chair, I'll launch the poll. Councillors will have 20 seconds to cast their vote. So that's 49 for, none against and no abstentions.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. I'll sign the minutes as agreed. On to item 3, which is notification of request by members of the public to address the meeting. We have three people wishing to, and we're going to take them now because of the time involved in waiting for their particular items to come up, and so it's easier to do it now. So I'm going to first of all ask Mrs. Jean Lineker, who will speak on item 9E, the Director of Public Health Annual Report. I think Mrs. Lineker's quite got her, she's there in the room, but not with audio. So we'll move on to the next one and come back to her. Mr. Thomas Profit on item 9F, the Youth Justice Plan.
Hello, thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity to speak.
3 minutes, Mr. Profit.
I've read over this justice plan, and it talks a lot and very well about what about what we plan to do once young people have offended. I don't believe we're going far enough to say, how do we stop young people from offending in the first place? And that's because there is a, quite frankly, embarrassing lack of provisions for young people in this county. There is a lack of services and places that they can go to. You walk around Northampton town centre on a Saturday, it's just teeming with youths. Most of them probably fairly nice, but some of them certainly unsavoury at times. And when you look at what we used to have available, we used to have events run, for example, in Northampton. You used to have youth clubs effectively coming out of your ears, and now we just don't have that. I think that boredom takes over and it drives a lot of young people to do stuff they otherwise wouldn't think about doing. And I don't think a lot of what we're seeing in terms of offending comes from a place of these people being malicious people. It comes from them feeling let down, disenfranchised perhaps, and just not having anywhere to go or anything to do. And this is just how that manifests itself. That's all I have to say on this matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Profit. Nice to hear somebody so young getting involved and so articulate about it. And hopefully that'll be included in the debate. Next one, is Mrs. Lineker ready, or we?
No, microphone's still showing.
No? Okay, so the next one is Miss Jodie Lowe, who wishes to speak on item 12, which is Councillor Stone's motion on youth work.
Hiya, thank you for having me. So I'm Jodie Lowe. I'm a youth worker who's worked in Northamptonshire for over 20 years. I'm the director of Free to Talk CIC, and we're leading on a Home Office pilot tackling child exploitation through youth work at the moment. I'm also a senior lecturer at the University of Northampton teaching youth work and community practice. I've grown up on the estates I work in, and I wanted to speak today about item 12 with regards to investing and supporting in youth work. I wanted to contribute by clarifying what youth work is, its benefits for the community, and describing what it's like delivering youth work today. So youth work is informal education. It's about enabling young people to grow personally and socially in spaces on their terms and with their peer group. Our theory of change in Free to Talk is about developing self-awareness, resilience, peer networks, healthy relationships, and helping them critically understand the world around them and the complexity of society that they're immersed in. We want them to be conscious of their ability to create change, how to lead their peers and take social action in their communities. We do this through positive, unconditional regard, build interest and challenging them to move on from unhealthy lifestyles. So the impact that we see in youth work is about building young people's confidence, self-esteem, identity, helping them develop new and existing skills, build their social relationships, give them opportunity to be creative, express themselves, help them gain respect and develop respect for others. It gives them positive mental health and a sense of community and positive group and create positive group atmospheres. So the current situation that we're seeing in young people's lives today, I'm not going to use stats to try and describe what that looks like. I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of what I've seen as a practitioner. So in the early 2000s, crime was committed by young people who were severely traumatised through abuse or tragic circumstances. For example, I remember working with a young person who was offending at quite a fast pace, and his history was that he'd found his father hanging himself and committed suicide at a very young age, and he had no other family to move forward with. Now, what I'm seeing is young people with identity issues, they're in poverty, excluded from school, and these are the young people that are committing higher levels of offending. I hear young people talk about self-harm and cutting in the same way they used to talk about smoking as a coping strategy for their daily stress. I've heard young people say it's easier to buy a firearm than it is stolen trainers. So we're really concerned about the lack of services and support, which means we're seeing more and more young people with lower levels of issues getting into trouble and coping with life in really harmful ways. So through our Home Office project that we've been delivering, we've seen that nationally there's a real problem with understanding that children can be both victims and perpetrators. We know that there's no real measure, let alone a way of being able to predict what children are at risk of exploitation. Our safeguarding screening tools have shown that almost every child attending our youth groups are at risk. And we know through lessons learned around sexual exploitation that there is money to be made through child exploitation, and in particular child criminal exploitation. And business model clearly carries a community-based grooming of young people. So generally, we only have enforcement agents like the police doing a great job out there in our communities, and we've lost qualified youth workers through the lack of investment over a generation now. And we know that we need educated understanding of community dynamics, of those needs and strengths to be able to create that sustainable change. At the moment, we've only got sticking plasters of positive activity for young people to try and that doesn't create the change that they need for themselves in their communities. We see that actually lots of services are about targeting individuals and supporting their families to create change, but actually the harm and the risk is extra familiar, so it's outside of the family, it's in our communities, and where the county need to up its game on contextual safeguarding.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Can I ask you to end there?
Sorry,
a little bit over time. You're obviously very passionate, and it's a very you've made a very powerful plea for your service. Thank you for that, and obviously had a wide audience for it. I could suggest, and it's if you've got information, then perhaps you want to send it to councillors, it could go through our democratic services, who will happily forward items on.
Thank you.
I'm afraid there's no more time. But
it's not just it's not just for our services, for youth workers in general. It's not a pitch for our service.
No,
okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you for and hopefully you'll be able to listen to the debate later on, and hopefully you'll hear good things there as well. So thank you for that. And thank you, Ms. Lowe. Have we got Mrs. Lineker yet?
I've got a colleague trying to resolve her problem, but no, she's not ready yet.
Okay, so well, I'd like to thank both the speakers, and perhaps we'll find a slot for Mrs. Lineker later on. Maybe at the time we'll do that item. And I'll invite Councillor Golby to just make a contribution after those speakers. I think he'd like to.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to acknowledge the contribution, they're obviously very much linked in the themes, and the administration will be supporting the motion put by Councillor Stone this afternoon. So just to inform the contributors, because they're both very much linked in the subject and their calls, that we will be supporting this, and hopefully it will be taken forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. So now we'll move on to item 4, which is declarations of interest by councillors. So councillors are reminded of the seriousness of not declaring a disclosable pecuniary interest. If a councillor declares such an interest, he or she must remove himself for the whole item, irrespective of whether they are a member of that particular committee or not. You're asked to note that you only need to declare an interest at the start of the meeting if that interest has not been recorded in the register of interest on the website. If any councillor declares such an interest, they must add it to the register within 28 days. Are any councillors wishing to declare an interest over and above? No raised hands. Okay. So Chairman's announcements. I've very little to add to what was said in the previous meeting, other than just to acknowledge the fact that I think this is Susan Zeiss' last meeting as, certainly last council meeting, full council meeting as our monitoring officer. And I think it's appropriate to thank her for all her work and guidance over the period she's been here, when she returns to the South Coast and the sunshine and beaches, which I'm sure she'll enjoy. And I wish her well in that, and just to acknowledge her contribution to the County Council in this period.
Thank you.
Next item, item 6, petitions. As far as I'm aware, none have been received. So we move on to, sorry, Councillor Meredith, I can see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would just like to, from my group on the County Council, I'd like to say thank you to Susan for all her help and advice that she has given us. Since she was appointed the monitoring officer, I got to know her and worked with her, and but certainly she's made an impression with my group, and I'd certainly like to wish her all the very best for the future. I did say to her, was she going back to her own country with a nice, lovely, hot weather? But we seem to be having nice, lovely, hot weather here. So where she's going, I'm certainly know she's going to make an input, and she's going to enjoy her life even better, even further, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. I did see Councillor Scott with this. Yes, Councillor Scott with hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to take the opportunity later under item 9.5, but since it's been raised, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add my appreciation to Susan for the help and advice to me and members of my group since the departure of Laurie Gould. I thank her for her dedication to the professional way she has conducted herself, and wish her well in her new role down south. And I quite like visiting now and again, but I hope she enjoys her role very much down there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Scott. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. So we move on to item 7, opposition priority business, and we have a motion submitted by Councillor McGee. So I'd invite him to propose his motion.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointment, and a big thank you to Stephen Legg for the past year. Chair, we know that unfortunately the coronavirus has put charities of all sizes under severe financial strain, and for some that threat is substantial. And if they fail, Chair, I'm sure we all recognise this, if they fail or these services are hauled out to a mere shell, it's the most vulnerable in our society that we fail, and that is across the borders. I recognise, Chair, and I do recognise that there has been some support by government through grants and furloughs, etc. And, you know, we shouldn't forget that. But a national survey recently, very recently, in the last day or two, says that that's only about 30% of the support that we need to carry on. So, Chair, I do recognise that there has been an amendment to this, so I'm not going to read out the proposed motion, and I'm sure you're glad of that, all of yours. But Chair, we have got to recognise that if we don't do anything, it will cost this council in the next 6 months, it will cost the 2 unitaries, especially in social care, children's services, our youth services, etc., as you've just heard about. Very passionate speaks for the 2 speakers. And it will cost us a lot in public health to try and remedy the problems that the voluntary sector aren't able to do because they're not able in these difficult times to raise the money that they usually would because of lockdown, etc., and because of the virus. So, Chair, I'm sure that with the amendment that we can support this. But what I do need, and I'm sure Councillor Clark will mention it, that this will not be kicked into the long grass if we take that amendment. This is a serious matter that will help save people's lives, help support vulnerable people in the future. And we do need to try and do something serious about supporting them. That's all I'll say at this moment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. And can I ask Councillor Scott to second the motion?
Thank you, Chairman. We know the lockdowns resulted in many children and adults experiencing issues of safeguarding, mental health, loneliness, financial hardship, to name but a few. We also know that since lockdown, the reopening of schools, we've progressively seen an increase in these cases. With the ending of the furlough scheme, we'll see more hardworking families falling into financial difficulties. We're also experiencing an increase of people contracting COVID-19 with signs of a second wave forming. With a huge expected increase in demand, we will definitely need the invaluable contribution our voluntary sector provides. Who knows how long it will be before we fully emerge into the new normal. Until then, we need the continued support of our voluntary sector, and we should be ensuring they will be there for us and our communities by lengthening the period of grants and commissioned work afforded to them. Thank you, and I ask you to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor, an amendment has been received, which you should be aware of, but this was received within time, and I'll invite Councillor Michael Clark to propose the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and may I add my congratulations to those of others to you. You're the 132nd Chairman of our Council. This is rather like Act 5, Scene 5 of a long-running play. And one doesn't know how it's going to actually pan out in the end, but I'm sure you will do an excellent job with the support of Laura. And I wish you every success with your virtual fundraising for the Tuer Trust. There is much, if not all, in the motion proposed by John McGee that I think all of us in the council will support with regard to the voluntary sector. I don't think Northampton County Council has been at all reluctant to support that sector because we recognise the invaluable work that many people in many different organisations do and have done over many years. I'm very pleased that John has accepted, however, the amendment. The amendment is necessary because there was one thing that was missing from the original motion, and that was any reference to the financial implications for our council. We have to pinch ourselves, Mr. Chairman, and remind ourselves that there is no magic money tree. We've been on a difficult journey over the last 2.5 years, and we have to be fully aware of the implications of any commitment which might be made. What was missing in the motion was essentially any reference. It was an unquantified financial commitment. Having spoken to the monitoring officer, well, not the monitoring officer, the 151 officer through Democratic Services, it is not yet really fully apparent how much precisely the council does give to the voluntary sector. It's a confusing picture and work has to be done by officers. But when I inquired as to the total sum, I was unable to extract a figure, which underlines really the importance of the amendment. If we wish to extend Northampton County Council grants by a year, we need to be clear where any funding will come from. Let us eliminate any further depletion of our reserves. As Councillor Golby said, we've taken a lot of trouble to build up from a zero situation 2.5 years ago to a now almost healthy situation, which we can pass on to the new unitary authorities. So there is only one source, and that is those are the budgets which have gone to the directorates. And the point of the amendment is to not request, but to require the Cabinet to look carefully through those budgets, as they are the 220, 221 budgets, to explore any ways in which there could possibly be savings or redirection of those budgets to enable us to do the work which Councillor McGee and Councillor Scott have referred to. We have to be clear that that work will be necessary, and that's why I've asked for the report back to come at the next meeting of full council. If we do receive indications of available funding, then it is a decision for us as councillors to decide whether we wish to reduce or to redirect budgets from other areas, place, children's or adult social cares, to enable us to achieve what was Councillor McGee's aspiration, which was to in effect duplicate the giving, the allocation over the current year. That I think really is where we are with this. There clearly cannot be any turning back on the financial disciplines we have applied successfully since 2018. But I remain optimistic that colleagues will be able to look carefully at areas we may be able to find funding from, and then bring those proposals back to the next full council for the council to decide what it is able to recommend moving into the voluntary sector and at what cost that would be in other areas. We have to review our priorities. So, Mr. Chairman, with that amendment, I think the motion itself is very sound, and I'm prepared to certainly support it as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Can I invite Councillor Irving Swift to second the amendment, please? Out there somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, please to second that. If she's not there.
Okay, well, I think we've just found her. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Patel, for stepping in there. Councillor McGee, do you, just to ask you formally, do you accept the amendment?
I do, Chair, and reserve the right to speak to the amendment.
Well, you'll get, we won't need to debate it separately if you've accepted it. So I'll invite councillors to speak on the motion as amended, and start with Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm really supportive of this motion. I think it's really, really important. I welcome the financial rigour that's going to go behind it. I look forward to the report coming back to council. I think during the COVID crisis, we saw really clearly exactly how important the voluntary sector are to us. They are filling many, many gaps. They are very close to the ground. They understand the need in all our communities. It is awful that over many, many years now, most of our voluntary sector have gone from hand to mouth, from short-term contracts to short-term contracts, producing a lot of anxiety and instability. And somehow in the future, we need to recover that position and create a situation where our voluntary sector are seen as valuable and equal partners in delivering the work that we need to deliver. And I know, looking forward into the new unitaries, much of the services that we want to deliver in children's, in adults, in lots of cases, are going to be highly, highly dependent on our relationship with the voluntary sector. So we need them, first of all, to survive. We need them to be resilient. And above all, we need to be in a position where we can co-design and co-deliver services with them. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our friends in the voluntary sector very, very much for the work that they have done over the years, but particularly during the COVID crisis. They have been simply outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Next on the list was Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I add my congratulations to all those gone before. I'm very happy to support the amended motion, and I fully agree with all the comments that Councillor Stone has made about our voluntary sector. In the children's service, which I'm involved with, we heavily rely upon volunteers to help us out with many roles. But I also am aware, as everybody else will be, that in the children's service, we do struggle to keep to our budget. And obviously this will be a priority for us going forward. But I do agree with Councillor Stone's comments. During this period of COVID, the voluntary sector have completely stepped up to the mark and helped us out in every way possible. And I congratulate them all for that. And I'm really thankful that they're there. And I would like to do my best to make sure that they continue to be there in our future. in our West and North Unitary councils. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Meredith is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to go on too long about this, but I'm just saying that I'm supporting the amended motion. I am extremely worried the way things are going within our world that we live in. And I know that the voluntary sector has stepped up to the mark, but I get quite upset when I get all these appeals from the voluntary sector asking for money to say that they're finding it very, very difficult to be able to fund their organisations. And I do take the point of this motion, and I do hope that the County Council can make sure into the future, especially when we go into unitary, that the voluntary sectors will be supported. It is a concern for everybody, I think, the way things are going now, and I just hope that we can take this motion on board and that it will be implemented and passed back to the Unitary Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. Councillor Hakewill.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had absolutely amazing support from the established voluntary sector during this COVID crisis. But what's also been amazing too is the number of people who have come forward. I think I had 13,000 volunteers across the county to help. We really, really do need to make sure that we capture that enthusiasm, support it, and make sure that it endures in the future. I think it's also fair to say the debt of gratitude we owe to a lot of the older members of the community who had to shield and were not there to be able to help because of their own health. We need to remember that that section of the community is incredibly important. I think we also need to be absolutely sure of charities like Home Start. We're talking of the Children's Trust. We're talking about what we can scrutinise there, but organisations like Home Start are amazingly important in the voluntary sector, and they have had to be neglected to a great degree as we tried to make our budgets meet. I'd like to thank all the people in the Rothwell-Maudsley division who have volunteered in that way, and I hope that they will be part of this debate for the future. So I accept the amendment, but there's a direct opposite between probity and financial thoughts and actually supporting the voluntary sector. It's a diametrically opposite process. I hope that the next meeting will come soon, because more of these organisations have the potential to fail by then. The old saying is that you shouldn't just take the cost of everything and the value of nothing. Prevention is always going to be better than cure. And it's fair to say that a lot of the savings trailed over these last 2 years have been at the cost of the voluntary sector getting less and less and providing less for us. So I really do hope that we don't just sit and worry about the finance, but we worry more about those enthusiastic people who want to volunteer and giving them the best possible support to their friends and neighbours, and I suppose I should say bubbles. So I will support the motion, but let's make it value, not just cost. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hakewill. Councillor Stanborough next.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I want to speak in support of the motion. Was happy to support it as originally written, in actual fact. There's no doubt that the voluntary sector does it better. It's more cost effective, it delivers services closer to the people, and those services are often delivered by people who know the very people to whom services are being delivered. And it's absolutely right that this council should do everything it can to support the voluntary sector, and we need to do more than we're doing at the moment, that's for sure. I think Councillor McGee has been very pragmatic in accepting the amendment. It's an interesting amendment. Whilst I think he was pragmatic and right to accept it, because the motion may well have not got through without it, the amendment does cause some worries. It talks about evaluating options to lengthen the period of grants to the voluntary sector, and to do so by examining possible savings from existing budgets, while at no time depleting the council's reserves. If as written, it reads pretty much as, if we can't find savings, we won't be extending any grants or commissioning to the voluntary sector. Now, those savings could be efficiencies, but if not, there'll be service cuts. And to me, the amendment seems like a little bit of a trap. I hope that's not the case, and at least as written, it appears that way. But what I would hope is that everyone in Cabinet bears in mind the spirit of the motion as originally written when they are seeking to bring forward the information that the motion requires. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanborough. Councillor Golby is next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on those final points, of course, we all agree with the spirit of the motion. We all recognise and value the voluntary sector immensely, and none more so than the times that we've all just been through. If I disagree with some of the last points made, certainly Councillor Hakewell, and we have got to make sure we continue with those principles of discipline and rigour around finance. And whenever I've spoken to the Chief Exec or any other senior officers about trying to put something in, one of the first things they say is, okay, well, we've got to make sure that that fits within budget. And that's one of the guiding principles that have helped us turn some of that financial situation around that I talked about earlier. But I think the motion and the amendment are very fair, and we'll do what we can and respond back to council accordingly as the amendment suggests. And I think that's the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. I have Councillor Pinto-Chohan next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute then. First of all, congratulations on your new role as chairman. So I'd like to pass those congratulations over to you. I did actually pull my hand down, but I might as well just finish up what I was about to say. A lot of the previous speakers did cover some of my points. So very quickly, I'd like to say that I'd like to speak in support of the amended motion. I'd also like to add that, you know, we as councillors, a lot of us are involved with community organisations. I myself am involved with the Hope Centre and do a lot of work with them. And without a doubt, it goes, you know, there is a lot of support. I don't think there's one councillor that wouldn't support the voluntary sector and all they bring to the table. But I fully agree that we do need to reassess the situation with the finances and make sure that the right support without bringing in any kind of damage to the work that we've done so far within the county council is brought. So I would like to support the amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chohan. Councillor Irving-Swift did have her hand up at one stage to put it down. I don't know if Councillor Irving-Swift still wants to speak. Not. Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay. No more councillors asking to speak, so I would ask Councillor McGee to respond to all the comments and on the amended motion.
Thank you, Chair. There was a lot said during there, and you know, I'm not just pragmatic, Chair, I'm a realist. In fact, I'm an optimist with an umbrella. I have faith in our cabinet members. I have faith in our directors to find a way, because it costs us money, more money in the long run, if we do not find a way to support organisations like Teamwork that the Chair has very kindly will support this year. Fantastic organisation. Like the JAM team who work with youth across Northamptonshire, especially my own area. Like the Autumn Centre that's 2 minutes from where I'm sitting just now that help elderly people. They haven't stopped working during this. Sorry?
That's Mrs. Lineker.
Yeah.
Right. And a small technical problem, which... Okay, Councillor McGee, carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I've mentioned some organisations, and there's a lot more, because we are all hopefully involved with the voluntary sector in one way or another, and I'm sure we are. Chair, so the reason I didn't quantify an exact figure there, and I'm not surprised Michael mentioned that, it's extremely hard for me to know every single organisation in the county and what they're receiving. And trying to get that information, like yourself, is extremely difficult. We aren't the only ones that support the voluntary sector. The districts and boroughs do it too. So we've got to come together and find a way of how we do that. And hopefully the two unitaries will help do that. Not that I'm for unitary, so I'll point that out straight away, but they'll come and they'll do that, hopefully, Chair. So what I've got, as I said, Chair, is faith in our directors, our cabinet members, because they will save money in the future if we support a lot of that voluntary sector that's doing that work, because they're doing a lot of the prevention work that we are unable to do at this minute. And I'm not going to go back, Chair, and go on about Cutsas, I would usually do if we were at full council, because that time is past now. It's time to put money where our mouth is, and that is to find a way to ensure we do not lose any more of the voluntary sector, because we have lost them already. There have already been organisations folded out there. So I look forward to the next meeting, Chair, with a positive outcome from the directors, from the cabinet members, and how we will support the voluntary sector going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I think every councillor in some way, shape or form supports or acts with voluntary organisations, doesn't it? So I will, no other speakers, so I will ask the council if it accepts the motion, and just to advise for the members of the public that the amendment, as it hasn't actually been read out, is to remove the final paragraph and add the following words. This council, mindful of the need to maintain financial probity, therefore requires the Cabinet to evaluate options to lengthen the period of grants to the voluntary sector and do so by examining possible savings from the existing budgets of each directorate, assessing the likely impacts while at no time depleting the council's reserves. The Cabinet should report back to the next meeting of the full council with its findings and recommendations. And that's in place of the last paragraph that was printed. So the poll is up. Can I ask councillors please to agree or not, as the case may be, the amended motion?
Thank you, Chair. I've launched the poll. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their votes.
If there's a problem. Although people are late in or anything.
Chair, that's 50 votes in favour, no abstentions and none against.
Well, thank you, councillors. I'm pleased to say that was unanimously approved, and so we'll look forward to the details at the next council meeting. I'm informed that Mrs. Lineker is now online, so I propose to take her contribution that she wishes to make at this point. Can you hear us, Mrs. Lineker? Just muted.
Done speaking. Jean Lineker is speaking.
Hello, Mrs. Lineker. We can hear you now. If you'd like to continue.
Hello. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Right. Well, I can't get your pictures, but don't worry about that. I just want to speak to you on behalf and thank you. Thank all the support that we've had during the COVID. But there's been some mix-up on 119. All the elderly people can't go online. So I've given them the number on Facebook, and some of them are rung up, and me, and I'm so confused on what to do. So I've now given them a number of NHS England, the local one, but we're still getting mixed messages from 119. I just want to thank also Julie Davenport, who set up the community for her area. I'm on that for support. I'm on lots of things for support. The Epsom Brook one I want to thank as well. And I'm sending the councillors a letter, and I'm hoping it will be distributed round to the councillors. Democratic Services have said they'll do that, because I've written a letter to the Prime Minister and Andrew Lua, the MP, my MP, to get into gear about the testing. The testing is taking too long. We know that. He's admitted that, the Prime Minister. But the problem is all us elderly are wearing face masks, shields. The schools are not. They're coming over to the centre and they've got no point of arrest on the centres, the shopping centres. All they can do is throw them out, but they haven't got the wardens up there to help them. They need police up there. And I've asked for that for all the centres within Northamptonshire. It is wrong for children not to wear their mask around the centre. When they're out of the centre, that's fine, that's down to them. But during going into shops, the shops haven't got no point of arrest. So that's what I've written in my letter. I just want to thank all the supporters that have supported us on Facebook. And I want to thank the council. Every time I ring them, I can get some help whenever I can. As an elderly person, sometimes I really get confused, but thank you. That's
Okay,
it.
thank you, Mrs. Lineker. Thank you for your contribution and for what you do in your area. I'm sure all our officers are keen to support you in your activities as much as possible. So thank you for that. We'll move on now to item 8, which is the questions to the chairman of the Audit Committee. There is a statement in your pack, and you councillors have been asked to submit written questions. So, Mr. Jessup, are you available to? And if you've had any questions,
yes,
would you like to cover them now? Thank you.
I'm online. There's nothing further I would like to add to the statement. I'm aware of one question from Chris Stattenborough, which I can read out for the benefit of the council, if you'd like.
Yes, thank you. Please go ahead. Yes.
So the question is, please could the chair of the audit committee give details of his current understanding of 1, the timetable for the audit of the council's accounts for 18-19, 2, the timetable for the audit of the council accounts for 19-20, and 3, the arrangements, timetable and audit committee oversight of the audit of the council's accounts for 2021. So the answer to those questions is that we will be discussing the timetable issues at the audit committee meeting next week. The current timetable for 18-19 is for E&Y to present their audit results reports in December of this year. I've spoken with council officers and E&Y in the last week, and both are clearly committed to this timetable, and I'm not aware of any issues that suggest to me that it will not be met. The timetable for 19-20 has not yet been agreed, but E&Y have said that they will complete this audit as soon as possible after the 18-19 audit. And they are well aware that the accounts for 19-20 need to be signed off before the end of March 2021. As to the arrangements for 2021, they have yet to be agreed, but my understanding is that in accordance with the concept of disaggregation, the responsibility for the completion of the 2021 accounts and their audit will transfer to one of the 2 new unitary bodies, and therefore it'll be overseen by the audit committee of that council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions of Mr. Jessup from councillors? Any other points from the audit committee papers which you have in your pack? No, I've got no hands raised. I think you've got away with it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. We don't have to know that, do we? So I'll move on now to item 9, business items. I'm going to slightly change the order because the chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board is not available till 1:30. So we'll take B, item B. Do we have the director available to introduce the report? Or not? Yeah, I can't see it. Yeah, okay. Eyes in the back of my head. I'll invite Mrs. Anna Earnshaw to introduce the report for the Northamptonshire Safeguarding Adults Board. Okay, we'll ask Councillor Morris to move the report first then.
Thank you very much, Chair. As we know, this is an independent report. Given what's been happening with COVID-19, the well-being and safeguarding of all our vulnerable adults across the county is a key priority for us all, and of all our key partners who sit on the board. And therefore, this annual report is presented normally by our independent chair, Tim Bishop, but today will be presented by Anna Earnshaw on behalf of him. I have to say, Tim Bishop has been a very, very good chair and has overseen proceedings in an amazing way. So I'm very happy to recommend this report to full council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, should we ask Councillor Ty to second then, please?
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, you're there.
Hi, Chairman. Yes, I'm very happy to second the proposal by Councillor Morris.
Thank you. So Mrs. Earnshaw is now with us, so perhaps you'd like to detail the report.
Thank you. And as Councillor Morris said, I'm presenting this on behalf of Tim Bishop, who unfortunately already had planned B. So thank you for inviting me to present this. Tim sent his apologies, but felt it was important that this full report was sent to full council and we received it as early as possible, rather than waiting for a following meeting just because of his absence. Obviously, these reports, they're always a snapshot in time, and during the final quarter of this report, the board obviously was overseeing a period of the global pandemic. So just to remind you, the Safeguarding Adult Boards has 3 core duties, namely that they must develop and publish a strategic plan, setting out how they will meet their objectives and how their member and partner agencies will contribute. Secondly, to publish an annual report detailing how effective their work has been. And thirdly, to commission safeguarding adult reviews for any cases which meet the criteria for these. Today, the annual report is presented, and note please the current strategic plan for 2021 and highlight the changes that have happened. I'd like to remind councillors to go on and check it.
Yeah, can all councillors please ensure they're on mute while we have a public speaker? Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Yes, sorry, to present the annual report, note the current strategic plan for 2021 and highlight the changes from April 21. The report again is in a shorter format this year. This is in part due to the resource constraints during the pandemic and partners' time, obviously, that has been focused on the pandemic and the response to that, but also as part of the board's commitment to make sure that reports are shorter and clearer going forward. From the annual report, you will know that the board met 4 times during the year and achieved 100% attendance from all statutory partners. At the May 2020 strategic board, members agreed the continuation of the board's priorities between 2020 and 2022. They held their 3rd annual conference in November 2019 and focused on strengths-based safeguarding as part of their ongoing work to making sure that safeguarding is made personal under the guidance. The feedback from those attending, as in previous years, was very good. On page 4 of the report, you will note that the board's work during the year included the delivery of a dedicated NSAB website, which now provides an up-to-date wide range of information to support both public and practitioners, and this is where all safeguarding adult reviews are now published. There were also 2 safeguarding reviews published in December 2019, and in February 2020, 2 practitioner learning events were held to cascade the learning from these safeguarding adult reviews to all practitioners. In November 2019 and February 2020, the Quality and Performance Subgroup undertook a multi-agency case audit on street homelessness and mental health, and learning briefings have also been developed to share the findings of those with colleagues across the partnership. They also improved their links with the county's Chief Housing Officers Group regarding the reporting on the number of street homelessness and homeless deaths. Reports from partners can be found on page 5 onwards from the Safeguarding Adults Review and reported on page 8 and page 9, so you can see the highlights of the Safeguarding Adults activities within the county. This is followed by the highlights from our strategic plan and our assessment on what has been achieved and what more we need to work on. The Chief Executive Representative for District and Borough Councils provided a quarterly update to the Strategic Board on the progress and the creation of the 2 unitary councils, and I note that this will be the last annual report to the County Council, as next year obviously the report will go to the 2 unitary councils. The Chair of the Board would like to place on record his appreciation for the support of members and all their constructive challenge in relation to the work of the Board and the commitment of all members to working towards the safeguarding of adults at risk of harm and neglect in Northamptonshire. The Board will continue to seek assurance from all partners that people are working together effectively to safeguard residents and to look forward to working with members from the 2 unitary authorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Can I take the opportunity to, now I've got it, to congratulate you on your new role, and I hope it's one you enjoy and make a tremendous success of. Thank you. We have councillors with questions. Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank the independent chair for this report. It is brief, but it's succinct and very informative. I've got 5 areas that I want to comment on. In my borough ward and in my county division, there's recently been a lot of very welcome police and enforcement agency activity dealing with cannabis farms, gang-related drug houses, illegal HMOs, trafficking. My concern here, though, is that young care leavers, so young adults, are often housed in supported housing with external agencies in these areas of high crime. I believe this adds to their vulnerability. Anne Longford in the National Children's Commissioner has recently reported that she feels this type of provision is inappropriate. Is this an area that the board may wish to look at in terms of our safeguarding duty? I'm aware Tim's not here, so it'll be a question that I will be forwarding on to him. And I welcome the director's comments. At the board, we receive reports from the police about domestic abuse. They're very useful, and it's good to get their point of view. However, the voluntary agencies that deal with domestic abuse all the time have different stories to tell. I think it would be a really good idea to get them to do an integrated report so we get a complete picture of what's going on, at least annually, and I'd like a comment about that. We're more aware now than we were before about how children are impacted by domestic abuse. So the question there is what integration is there between children and adults when we're looking at domestic abuse and how we're protecting children, and indeed how we're providing services to children who have been impacted by that abuse. I was absolutely delighted to read in the report about the enhanced provision for mental health support with 2 mental health workers working with the police. As a counsellor and a community activist, I have found it very, very difficult to get mental health support for people in crisis. And these are people I may have called on. They are people who've presented themselves at the Guildhall. They're people I've encountered off the streets. It's been really problematic in knowing how to call for help for them. And lastly, I just wanted to raise a point about hidden vulnerabilities and what we are supposed to do about that. As a community activist, like lots and lots of councillors, I'm out in the community, and the COVID crisis in particular has exposed for the first time for me a lot of hidden vulnerability. So, for example, I do deliveries for the United Africa Association Food Bank. I take food parcels out to elderly people. I am shocked. I am shocked at what I have seen in terms of the vulnerability of people in our communities where they have had no help. And it strikes me that all of us need some training in how to spot areas of neglect, self-harm, poverty, all kinds of difficulties, and then to know how to respond to it, how to engage the services where it is appropriate and where it isn't appropriate. I think we need to do an awful lot more work on that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Hakewill.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would add my congratulations to Anna, who's been a real stalwart of adult social care, and obviously Councillor Morris as well. One thing that does strike me is that we are now going to create a local government boundary. And for those of us who actually sit on that boundary, my Rothwell-Maudsley division is a few metres away from Daventry district, which will become the West. And my plea there is to be heard that there are many things across those boundaries which currently don't exist within the total Northamptonshire that might affect people living either side, where facilities and opportunities currently can be chosen, between Maudsley or Old or Walgrave or wherever. So I hope that we will make sure, and I think I'm being reassured, that we won't start to treat that as a boundary. And we should also remember, as all councillors here do, that we border Milton Keynes, Warwickshire, Market Harborough, Leicestershire and Peterborough, and the opportunity for the new unitaries to understand how we look after both children and adults, but we also recognise the geography and don't do things that ask people to move long distances to be in care, or those people who want to visit them, when we could actually be working cooperatively across boundaries. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Rumans.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to endorse some of Councillor Stone's comments on potentially doing some training with regard to kind of being able to pick up domestic abuse and other abuses, and being better at spotting issues in the community, because I think I'm fairly aware of things going on, but I know that there is always more that we can do. And obviously, as councillors, we're effectively agents between the residents that we represent and lots of different organisations. And therefore, if we can find more ways that people are able to get in contact with us, or even ourselves be more proactive to kind of spot people, find people with problems, and then be able to refer them on, I think that will massively enhance our own abilities to do our job, and obviously will hopefully improve the lives of lots of our residents. So just like to kind of endorse Danielle's comments there.
Thank you. Do you want to make any comments in response, Mr. Earnshaw?
Yeah, just a couple of things. So first, thank you, Chair, that Councillor Stone asked on. So I believe that certainly in terms of housing for young carers, there are ongoing conversations. One of the benefits there, I use the word of the COVID situation, is a far more join up between the housing groups and children's in terms of that challenge and the accommodation for those. And a much more strategic conversation is already taking place. But absolutely, we should pass that on and make sure that that's picked up. The idea of a integrated report annually on domestic abuse is certainly something that can be considered. And picking up that and Councillor Hakewell's comments, one of the things that's going through due process at the moment as part of the unitary setups is the question of safeguarding board and how it's constituted in future in terms of the two councils as a shared or indeed separate boards. And recommendations are going through a process at the moment and will come to the unitary shadows and exec shortly in terms of that decision. But one of the key focuses on that is resetting its terms of reference, which we absolutely could pick up that integrated question about police and voluntary agencies, and also Councillor Heather's point about we don't recognise the boundaries, safeguarding issues don't recognise those boundaries, and obviously care families don't. So we need to make sure that we still have joined up provision, we still make sure we have the right support for the right types of services across the county, and that the unitary boundaries don't create an unnecessary problem. With regards for training for members, I think that's something that we've constantly tried to do. We certainly can look at again in terms of spotting those signs and training. And the last thing I just to pick up really is Councillor Stone's comment about how and where you report those kind of vulnerabilities and things that you might see. And I'd actively encourage all members, and we can make sure you've got the right contact points for this, to use the new adults community hubs, because one of the things that we'll be doing, and we will actually end up with 10 of those across the county, is all inquiries to adults will now not be dealt with in the contact centre in the first instance, but will be referred on to those centres. And that includes picking up any reports or concerns about a vulnerable person or something that needs to be investigated, which may or may not turn into a full safeguarding issue. But our aim is to actually respond very quickly to someone who appears to be in crisis or in danger of neglect or self-harm. And so far we've had some really good successes on that. So I'll be very happy to share with members how they make that contact so that those teams can respond accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Can I ask Councillor Morris to respond to any comments he wishes to make?
Thank you, Chair. No, I would just endorse what Anna Earnshaw has said, and would further obviously also congratulate her on her new appointment as Chief Executive of the Western Unitary. I feel that the new Unitary in the West will be in very safe hands when she becomes Chief Executive. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. So can I ask councillors if they accept the report and advice? Mr. Hanson will launch the next poll.
Thank you, Chairman. Launching the poll now. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote. Yeah, that's 45 in favour, none against and no abstentions.
Thank you. So once again, happily, that's unanimously approved. So we'll move on to item 9C, which is the annual report by the Northamptonshire Safeguarding Children Partnership. Can I ask Councillor Baker to move the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to be able to move this report. It's very detailed, and just to remind members, although I'm sure they know, that this is a partnership between ourselves, health and the police. So it's a combination of all those three really important agencies working together to safeguard our children. And I'd like to pass over to the Director of Children's Services, Kathy Hadley, to put this report forward.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Firstly, though, if Councillor Smith-Haynes will second the report for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to support and second this report. It's very full, very frank, and identifies ways that we need to move forward, and I'm really proud of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. We'll ask Mrs. Hadley to the Director of Children's Services to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the annual report of the Northamptonshire's Children's Safeguarding Partnership. It spans the time period of July 2019 to April 2020 and covers some period of time during COVID. The partnership works against the Working Together Guidance of 2018 and the Children's Act, and it sets out the arrangements for partners to work together and to hold each other to account and to promote the welfare of local children. You'll note in the report that the key priorities are the early action to protect children around support of young people at risk of exploitation, work effectively as a partnership, and it sets out the shared funding arrangements. It also sets out the structure of the partnership and its associated subgroups underneath the main partnership. I'm pleased to see that the report includes direct feedback from children and young people on a variety of issues. and that the partnership acted upon those, and there are examples in the report, such as the issues that children have raised around gangs and our critical response to the process that we have set in place required in section 4. The report sets out the activities of the partnership to keep children safe and makes links across activities, such as the number of missing children who are also permanently excluded from school and are also at risk of exploitation. And so the partnership review whether practice and provision of services to those children requires strengthening. Learning across the partnership is managed through the structures of the local learning reviews, rapid reviews and safeguarding practice reviews, and is also linked to the national safeguarding panel. Any training is delivered through the partnership through learning briefings and training opportunities, and training is available for all partners, and some of this has been delivered through e-learning. During lockdown, the e-learning offers, there were 5,000 licences taken up for professionals across those partnerships. The Children's Safeguarding Partnership also had a conference on child exploitation, and that was well attended by all partners. The Safeguarding Children's Partnership also works closely with secure facilities that we have in the county, and they review and monitor the performance with regards to safeguarding children and also their management of behaviour within those facilities. The partnership has set out that we're also concerned with and wanting to work together on neglect, reducing parental conflict, MASH and multi-agency safeguarding hub transformation, the rewriting of thresholds and pathways that the partners use, and missing young people. Also, you will find in the report under Appendix 4 is the very tragic and very sad accounts of the 10 child deaths during this period of time, of which we had 6 rapid reviews, and 2 of these reviews were sent to the National Safeguarding Practice Panel. There is a national report about child deaths during this time, and some of those very sad deaths are due to oversleeping. This is something that the partnership is concerned going forward.
Thank you, Leslie. I'll open this up to councillors now for debate. And Councillor Birch is the first.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report and note there have been significant developments over the past year. This is a crucial partnership of services to keep our most vulnerable children and young people safe. The local authority, the health and the police represent the agencies involved in safeguarding, and the effectiveness of these partnerships and the way that the services work together is fundamental to joined up delivery of the service. I'm very pleased to see the creation of early help and child sex exploitation subgroups. This is not before time. It's not a new phenomenon. The voice of the child is also valuable, and we should always listen carefully to them. They are the end users of the service, and they experience the service in first hand. And it's very good to see that they are spoken to, listened to, and we hear what they say. An area of great concern for me is the increased number of missing children. This is a 45% increase, and it is alarming. This is just in 1 year. This is something that has to be a priority as we move forward, especially with the effects of COVID and children being out of school for a 6-month period. Numbers of children and young people on permanent exclusion from school and children that are homeschooled is also a very great concern. These young people are vulnerable to grooming and abuse and violence. There have been cases of a young child homeschooled, not seen by our social workers. It's very easy for carers and parents to hide these children away from sight. Lots of excuses are given for not actually being seen in visits, And I've been told by the people that visit, the social workers that visit, they don't even know if the child that they see sitting there at the table with a pile of school books is the child that they are supposed to be caring for. Now, there's no photographs, there's no way of knowing that that child is the one that we have in our care. With reference to all this, I'm very, very keen to see and welcome the creation of a contextual safeguarding handbook, which I think will perhaps look at some of the safeguarding issues outside the home, outside the normal home situation, which many of our children are seen in. Safeguarding is right out there in the communities, in our schools, on our streets, in our estates, in our parks. And we need a different set of safeguarding measures to make sure that these children are also coming forward and identified when the behaviour becomes risky or they are put at risk. So generally, I think the report acknowledges the challenges that the service faces, and I welcome it and hope for, to see. I'm looking forward to seeing a really good progress in all these areas that have been identified. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rex. I think those of us who are school governors will have noted the homeschooling, and I think Councillor Scott and I have raised this before. Next councillor would be Councillor Roy, please.
Hello, thank you for the report. I appreciate its succinctness. Over the summer, we've had quite a lot happening in relation to the Black Lives Matter movement, and a lot of the context of this relates to Black children, just in terms of disproportionate amounts of them being excluded from education, disproportionate amounts of them being in our care system. I have concerns about the absence of FGM from this report. A few years ago, it was seen as a critical part of the work here, and there was quite a lot done within local communities. With lockdown, there are concerns within the community that there may be more of an influence of practicing families, and therefore more need to be diligent about this. And yet it doesn't feature at all here. And even in the last few weeks, I've had cases come to me relating to FGM and child protection. So I just wanted a comment from the officer about it, and also how are we on this issue acting in partnership with other organisations and with regional leads. We actually have some really great local voluntary organisations that are specialising in this area, developing national algorithms that are being used nationally, and yet don't seem to be engaging locally, and finding it difficult to find out the leads to engage with. So if I could have a response to that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roy. Councillor Meredith is next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. It's very informative and certainly gets me thinking about things in general that have been happening during this report. I particularly would like to speak about this restraint and about the two facilities where young people from the ages of 12 to 18 are kept, and them with actually severe mental health issues. This is actually quite a new thing to me. As being a councillor for a long time, I've not really discussed this in greater detail. I know that perhaps I should have found out more, but this report has highlighted the use of restraint in young people with mental health problems. I noticed the two places that are mentioned have not had very good Ofsted recordings, and that does worry me. I have not in my tenure as a councillor ever been invited to have a look at these two places to see what actually happens with these children, and I think that should be quite necessary to do. I think should be involved in this, and but perhaps and I understand about the times we're in, but I do think there should be some sort of liaison to see how these facilities. I often drive by the new building that was built in Cliftonville, and I was told that is one of the areas, and I'm not sure it is because it's not been recently discussed. And I think that should be open the door for councillors to go to have a look and to see. I wonder perhaps if the director can reply to my questions, because I do show some concern over this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. Next up, Councillor Parker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment. I'm not totally sure that this is the right paper that I should be speaking on, but a major concern that I have in my division, and it's close to Brambleside School, of which I'm actually chair of governors. For quite a few months now, drugs were being sold on a regular basis very close to the school. It's been reported to the police. I actually spoke to the Police and Crime Commissioner about this several weeks ago now, and nothing has actually happened. The police have been informed on a regular basis by residents who are emailing the contact within the police force about the drug issues. When they're actually selling the drugs, that they're actually the registration numbers of the vehicles have also been given to the police, and to date, absolutely no action has been taken. The big concern, of course, is, first of all, who's actually receiving these drugs, because you can see people on scooters and that going off with bags full of drugs that are obviously going somewhere. But the big concern, of course, is it children that are receiving these teenagers? Is it the parents of children who could then result in the child being injured in some way? And I am really concerned about the fact that no action is being taken. I say this has been going on for quite a few months now. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. I have no other councillors asking to speak, so I'll ask Mrs. Hadley to respond as best she's able.
Yes, okay, no problem. Picking up the first points with regards to missing children, it obviously is a great concern to us all, and as it outlines in the report, that it isn't just about looking at those children as missing children. They are those children who are then very vulnerable. They are probably children who are also permanently excluded on part-time education, and they're the ones that people target for exploitation, and the partnership are working very hard to identify those children and to work with them. And there is a new approach to the subgroups, so one of the subgroups to actually tackle and to pull those elements together. With regards to homeschooling, we are extremely concerned about homeschooling and the fact that that has actually increased, especially currently after lockdown and COVID and with the return to school. We are very clear that we overlay the numbers of home educated children with those children that we know are vulnerable and that have a social worker. And so social workers should be absolutely clear about who their children are if they are not home educated and where they sit. And if you do have an issue, you have had something highlighted to you where a social worker isn't aware of the child that's in their care, then I would quite like that raised to me so I can review that. With regard to comments from Councillor Roy, I think that there is a need for the partnership to consider issues of difference across the board in terms of the elements of safeguarding and how we work across that agenda. And you are correct, there is a disproportionate of young black children who are being excluded from school. We need to work with schools in terms of how we manage that. FGM is actually managed on the operational everyday matter. There are very clear processes in the management of that. It doesn't feature in this report because that's work that has been previously done. And again, I would also like to pick up any voluntary agencies that will support and assist us in the partnership and the work that we're doing. I share the concerns about the two facilities that we have in the county and their Ofsted ratings. There are obviously structures and processes with regard to the Ofsted rating and their need to set up action plans and to work towards those with Ofsted. However, we also provide some involvement into those providers to support them in developing those action plans, but also seek to reassure ourselves that they are delivering. They are open for us to do that. They do not prevent us from doing that. And we would welcome councillor interest in some of those to support our agenda in that area. It's difficult for me to comment about the issues of raised drugs with schools because I'm not currently in that position to be able to comment.
Okay, thank you, Ted. And we ought to add our congratulations to you on confirming your role across both councils, I think. Okay. I'd like to invite Councillor Baker to reply, to add her reply to any comments that have been made.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to put forward to councillors that both the director and myself are exceedingly, as she did say, concerned about the rise in homeschooling, and actually not just the rise, but in homeschooling generally. We are currently putting together a paper between us that I will send to government to ask for them to put more measures in place. I understand one MP has voiced that there will be a register, but I don't think a register is going anywhere near far enough. We know who these children are. They already have informed their school that they're homeschooling. We need more ability to check up and see that these children are A, receiving a good education, and B, being properly looked after. At the moment, we have very, very little that we can do as a council. We don't even have to be able to go into the home if the people say we can't go in unless we get a court order. So we do need to have some guidance from government on this, and I am actively doing that at the moment. So that's all I'd like to say, Chairman, and I just put the report forward for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. So I'll ask Mr. Hanson to put up the poll. So I'll ask the council if it accepts the advice in the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go on to the poll now and then we'll have 20 seconds to cast their votes. Chairman has 44 votes for, 1 against and no abstentions.
Okay, thank you, councillors. That's passed with a heavy majority. Thank you for that. Next item D, the report from the Standing Advisory Council for Religious Education, and I'll invite Councillor Brackenbury to move that report.
Thank you, Chair. Can I add my congratulations to you and wish you a very successful term of office? Okay. I'm pleased to present this report to Council. The date of the report is correct. Unfortunately, it was delayed and then delayed again due to COVID. Northamptonshire SACRE is made up of 4 statutory groups, including representatives of both faith and non-faith organisations, teachers and councillors, chaired by Marcia Walker and ably assisted by our clerk, Jane Hall. You can see the membership in the appendix. We have lost our part-time advisor, who during her time with us has laid good foundations for Northamptonshire SACRE to build on. The agreed syllabus continues to be a useful resource for the teaching of religious education in our schools. The report gives a snapshot of the work carried out during the period. The meetings of SACRE are held 4 times a year and are open to the public. Agendas are published on the County Council website in advance of the meetings, and the next meeting will be held on October the 12th by Zoom. You may notice that the exam results are missing from the appendix. They are in my appendix, but I understand that Democratic Services have received these, and I will ask that they're sent out to councillors. I would like to thank all members of SACRE for their continued dedication, particularly during this difficult time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brackenbury. Can I ask Councillor Sylvia Hughes to second the report? No, sorry, I apologise. It's Dudley Hughes. I'm looking at the wrong report.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations to you and, of course, Councillor Legg as Vice Chairman. SACRE is really a very important thing, although not everybody perhaps understands. And if you look on page 35 of book 2, you can see all the logos or the symbols of different religions. And there's never been a more important time when young people learn to recognise what other people believe in, whether they believe in it themselves or not, but also give them the opportunity to find out about perhaps their own faith and what they might want to believe in. There's no evangelizing, but what they might want to think about in the future. So I think religious education in schools is very important. It's statutory, and I welcome this report and wish to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Are there any councillors wishing to speak? I've got Councillor Stanborough.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just noting the report, it's short this year, and the recommendation, which says that the report should be published to schools in order to improve the quality of provision for religious education and collective worship. And I can't really see anything in the report that would achieve that. So we've got something telling us about the purpose of the report, the management at SACRE, and that they had a conference, and that appears to be the substantive content of the report. I would submit gently that it doesn't really achieve what the recommendation says it ought to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanborough. Yeah, I've no other councillors, so can I ask Councillor Brackenbury if she'd like to reply to any comments?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there have been a number of changes of staff supporting SACRE, and that has had an impact on the work carried out during this period. And also the agreed syllabus, which is given out to schools, and there are a lot of resources for schools to refer to, and they can of course come to the clerk. So there is a lot of work going on during the background, and they rely on the agreed syllabus and refer to that a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. So can I now ask council if they accept the report, and Mr. Hanson will launch another poll.
Thank you, Chair. I'll launch the poll on that item. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote. Chair, that's 42 votes for, 4 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Senator. I am pleased to announce that report is approved by council. And I think that that's the end of Pack 2, so that's probably an appropriate time for us to break for lunch. I would suggest that councillors don't log out in order not to have to log in, and just leave their screen on with maybe with the video turned down. But if we can restart again, please, at 1 o'clock. And so we've got half an hour at 1 o'clock.